This RedRock 4x4 cold air intake kit in Wrinkle Black is for those of you that have a 2012 to 2018 JK that has that 3.6 liter engine and are looking for a way to get a little bit more throttle response, a little bit more noise from underneath the hood of your Jeep, and an additional MPG or two. This is going to be something that will install very easily into your Jeep. Definitely a 1 out of 3 wrench install. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So a cold air intake in general will give you some more power, but it really depends on the engine and if the intake is really a choking point or not. On your Jeep with the 3.6 liter engine, the intake is not really a point of restriction. So by opening it up and adding a cold air intake, you're going to get a little bit of a cooler air charge, but you're not going to get a ton more air. And because you're not adding a tune with this cold air intake, I wouldn't expect to notice a ton of additional power. A little more throttle response, a little bit more sound from underneath the hood, and maybe an MPG or two is what you should be expecting from this. This is also going to give you a reusable conical filter, which is going to be nice, especially if you do any wheeling in some dry and dusty areas. You can clean out the air filter, pop it back on again instead of having to change it out. Now, that is one very important note to make about any cold air intake in general. If you are somebody who does a lot of wheeling in wet areas, you do a lot of water crossings, I would not recommend a cold air intake. This is going to delete your factory air box, which can also help to keep some water out of the engine. And this will make it a little bit easier to suck water in if you are doing some deep water crossings. So you do want to be a little bit careful with that. In the world of cold air intakes, this one is priced very appropriately. I think some of the other ones that are basically the same thing, you're getting a tube, a filter, and a little bit of a shield, that are a lot more expensive, you just don't really know what you're paying for. Here, I think you're still getting something high quality, looks good, works well, and it's gonna be less expensive than some of those other options. So for construction, you are getting the tube. Again, this is covered in the Wrinkle Black coating. You have your spot for your sensor here, no need to drill any type of holes. You are getting that conical filter that is washable and reusable. And over here, you're getting a shield, and that's designed to keep you from pulling the warm air that's already underneath the hood of your Jeep and instead pulling the colder air from the outside of your Jeep. Now, this isn't perfect. This isn't a fully enclosed air box with just one intake that's down in the fender or right in the grill. So you're still gonna get a little bit of a mix of warm and cool air, but it is designed to give you a cooler charge than you would get from that factory air intake system. This cold air intake kit comes in at right around $150, and like I said, I think that's gonna be a good deal for you. If you want one of those fully enclosed systems, they're of course gonna be more expensive. There's more material there, more parts, more cost. There are also some that have a couple other different little features built in here or there, different things to let you know if your filter is getting dirty, those types of things. And those are all going to add cost. This is going to be a much simpler cold air intake system that's still gonna do the job while saving you some money. Now, a member of the install team will show you how to get this bolted up to your JK.
We'll begin by removing the PCV hose. And then we're going to disconnect the IAT sensor down here. And just squeeze on that, and then it'll unplug. Next, we're going to loosen up the clamp that holds the intake tube to the throttle body. Next, using a 10mm socket, we're going to remove these two bolts. Next, we're going to remove the whole air intake and air box setup. You can do this by just prying up on it, removing the whole assembly. First step to this install, we're going to assemble part of the heat shield. You're going to take this bottom piece with this cutout, and we're going to place this cutout on that one. This piece is going to go inside of this. Now they provide you with 6 Allen-headed screws. We're going to install those through the outside like this. And then we're going to place a washer and a nut on there. So now that we have all 6 of the screws in, we're gonna go around and tighten those up. The Allen head is a 3mm and the nut is a 7mm. So now that we have our box assembled, we are ready to install it into the vehicle. We're gonna take the 2 long bolts provided. We're gonna insert them through these 2 holes. After we do that, each one is gonna get a spacer. These 2 bolts are gonna go through these 2 mounting points for the factory airbox. So we wanna lower this down in there, make sure that our spacers don't fall off. So now that we have that in, we're going to go ahead and remove one of these screws from the radiator. So we're going to remove this screw here in the top side of the fan. You're going to use an 8mm socket to remove that. Once we have that out, we're going to save that. And we'll assemble our box. That screw's gonna go back in through a hole on the side of this and into there. So for the 2 bolts that we inserted with the spacers, you will need to go in through the wheel well and install a washer and a nut. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So that screw that we saved, that was an 8mm, we're gonna go ahead and insert that through the heat shield and back into the fan shroud. Once that's in, we can go ahead and tighten it up using our 8mm. Once we have that tight, we're gonna switch to our 10mm, and we're gonna go ahead and tighten these 2 lower bolts down here. Next, we're going to take our supplied rubber gaskets. We're going to install them onto the heat shield. First, we're going to take the larger of the 2, and we're going to place that on the top. Next, we're going to take the smaller of the 2 gaskets. We're going to install that inside the intake tube hole. And then we're just going to trim this excess off. Next, we're going to take the IAT sensor out of the factory intake. We're going to install it in our aftermarket one. We're going to note the position. To remove it out of the factory, we're going to need to turn it counterclockwise, and it's going to have to come over a little lock. So we're just going to turn it a 1/4 turn, and then we'll wiggle it out, and then we're going to put it in our aftermarket one in the same direction. So if you just wiggle it back and forth, press it in, you can get it in there. Note the orientation. Now that we have this installed, we're ready to install it in the car. So it's a little bit of a tight fit. We decided to get this on the throttle body first. We're going to install one of our clamps. So loosen it up a little bit. Get it to slide up and over. Spin it a little bit so it's out of the way. Now we can slide our other clamp on. Slide our intake tube into the heat shield, and then we can slide our tube into that coupler. Once we get that in, we can tighten our clamp up. So the next step, we're going to install the filter with the supplied clamp. We're just going to slide that onto the end of the intake. Once we get it on, we're going to tighten that clamp up with a flathead screwdriver. Next, we're going to reinstall the PCV hose. I'm going to place one of our clamps on there, slide that on, tighten it up. Place our other clamp on the other side, slide that onto the tube. Next, we're going to use our supplied hold downs to hold the coolant overflow line. So we're going to slide that line into there, and then we're going to reuse these bolts that we removed at the beginning. And the last thing, we're going to plug in the IAT sensor.
So if you're looking for an inexpensive and easy to install cold air intake for your JK, I would definitely recommend this option from RedRock 4x4, and you can find it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.